And good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. One more time, my name is Tony Alba with Hard Dollar Corporation. I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar on HD PCM version 12.1. Brad Barth will be with us momentarily to go through all of the features that are new in version 12.1. We will have time for questions at the end, so please use the question function on your computer. Your phones will be muted throughout today's seminar. If you do miss any portion or want to review any portion of today's webinar, we will have it posted online on our website at harddollar.com. Again, that's harddollar.com, probably within 24 hours. Brad Barth is a Senior Vice President at Hard Dollar. He's been instrumental in transforming the company from a startup software developer into one of the world's leading solution providers for project-driven enterprises. In helping to orchestrate Hard Dollar's product vision and go-to-market strategy, he has guided HD Software to award-winning status while developing a large and loyal customer following. Brad received a BA in Business Administration from Southern Methodist University, and we welcome Brad to today's webinar. Brad, thank you for being with us. I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Tony, and welcome everybody. What we're going to do today is, as Tony said, we're going to go through what's new in our 12.1 release, and just to remind everybody out there, especially if you're new with Hard Dollar, this 12.1 is a follow-up, and as you've noticed, we typically do about a 6-month that 2 releases a year. This, while version 12 was a major release with lots of new functionality, lots of major new features, version 12.1 you'll find there's a couple of new features and then really a lot of efficiency enhancements. So we really focused version 12.1 on a lot of feedback we've gotten from customers in terms of, hey, we like what it does, we like the features, let's look at making them more efficient, improving the user experience, letting us get our work done more quickly. So, in fact, as Tony mentioned, we've been really active in the marketplace in terms of bringing on new customers and developing a large customer base. And over the last few years in particular, we've really expanded into all the different constituents, let's say, in the construction industry. So contractors, of course, always been our bread and butter. And recently, over the last few years, we've gotten more and more into the owners and EPCMs, engineer, procure, construction manager type firms. So, as we get feedback from the market, which we do in a lot of different ways, we do that through our user conference, we do it through our training classes, through our tech support lines, through our enhancement requests at harddollar.com email address. We get suggestions and feedback from the market all the time. And we try to look at those in different categories, in different ways, and make sure that we're providing good value for all of the customers of Hard Dollar, whether you're an owner, an EPCM, or a contractor. So you'll see in this version 12.1, the highest thing really on the list for our owner and EPCM contractors, biggest request was for a feature that we call commitment. So we'll go through that today. And then, like I said, really on the contractor side, a lot of efficiency enhancements. And then one of the things we're most excited about that we'll take a look at, and this really applies to everybody, and that's some new reporting and dashboarding capabilities that are not only built into the Hard Dollar product, but also in our Lasso Project Intelligence product that is integrated with Hard Dollar. And that will really allow you to get into web-based reporting and dashboards and analytics. So we'll take a look at that as well. So as we look at project cost management, or PCM, the things that really the kind of major tasks that folks get involved in as you're taking a project around that circle from estimating into planning and scheduling, monitoring the progress of the project, managing changes in the project, and then ultimately doing forecasts and updating forecasts. And then certainly, kind of taking those lessons learned and creating benchmarks and history that we can use the next time we get into the estimate. That whole circle is what we call project cost management. And as we go forward, we're investing in all of these areas around that circle. So you can see in this version 12.1 release, there's new enhancements in all of those areas. Just as a little trivia question, we are, as Hard Dollar, we are investing more in R&D and product development in the next 2 years than we have in the past 6 combined. So if you kind of think about the dynamics of that for a second, you're going to see, starting with our version 12 release and into 12.1, and then we have another release later this year and some big releases coming out in 2014. You're going to see major developments coming out of Hard Dollar, and that's being driven by, as I said, customer feedback, as well as the growth we've continued to experience allows us to reinvest in the product. Okay, so I wish that we had time today to go through every single new thing in 12.1. We won't have the opportunity to do that, but we will focus on four key areas that we'll go into in detail, and then my goal is to have some time at the end where we can open it up for you to submit your questions. And if there's something else you'd like to see at the end of the presentation, I'll bring up a slide that lists most of the new features in a big list. And you'll be welcome at that point to submit a question on any of them that we don't have a chance to cover. All right, so let's take the first focus area, and that is on this new feature called commitments. So what is commitments? Commitments, really the goal of that is to help primarily owners and general contractors, prime contractors, who are managing other contractors, managing suppliers. So the goal here is that we want to be able to, whatever we've developed the budget, what our assumptions were in the budget, now that we actually start to make commitments to a contractor or subcontractor or supplier, we want to be able to manage that separately from the budget. So as you can see on the right, we want to be able to compare what's been committed versus what's in the budget. Okay? And likewise, we want to be able to compare as the work gets going, as we're incurring expenses. We want to track how is each one of those contractors or suppliers doing against what we've committed to them. Okay, so that kind of sets the stage for that particular feature. Let's dive into it and take a look at it in action. Okay, so I'm into Hard Dollar 12.1 now. I've opened up a particular project. We're going to use a few different projects as examples today. And what we're going to see here first is a new view in our job tracking register. So I've gone into my job tracking register for those of you that are on the project execution side with Hard Dollar. Once the project's been estimated, you can then use this job tracking register to manage progress, manage performance, and manage forecasts. So everything you see with the word commitment in it is new in version 12.1. So here's a particular view where we can see a few columns. So here we have a bunch of different scope for this project listed over on the left. We have some engineering work, some storage tanks, some pipe work down at the bottom, a bunch of different things. Now, the column here, this CV column, this is our current budget. Okay, so those of you who are familiar with version 12, when we introduced the control budget and the original budget, here we're looking at the current budget. So the current budget for this project, we can see, for example, for those storage tanks and pressure vessels, we've got $4 million and $5 million. We haven't committed that to anybody yet, though. Okay, so we're going to get that from an outside source, and but we haven't committed that, so our committed cost is zero. There's no provider or seller listed there yet. Okay, but we had some assumptions in there that we based our budget on to get to those $4 and $5 million numbers. Okay, let's set the scenario here, though. At this point, we want to go ahead and make a commitment to get this work done. If I've got a quote perhaps already on these items, I can go into that quote, and and just to make the example more meaningful here, let's say that we are aware, perhaps through negotiations or discussions, we're going to be able to get a better price on these vessels than what we based our budget on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go into the quote register where I know we've received a quote already on those tanks and vessels. In fact, there it is right there from our company called Ecology. So if I open up that quote, because I do want to change the price, like I said, and we can see those pressure vessels. We're procuring 2 of those. Our budget was based on $2.5 million, but let's say that we are now aware that we're going to be able to get these for $2 million. Okay, so total of $4 million for those vessels. All right. The beauty of this commitments capability is that I can leave my control budget the way it was, because that perhaps is how I'm going to be measured in terms of success for this project. But now I want to hold Ecology, and I want to measure Ecology's actuals to the number we're committing to them, which is this $4 million total for each of those lines. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go ahead and create a commitment for that. Okay, so I can do that a number of different ways. I can write from this quote register. I can go ahead and say, okay, let's create a commitment for Ecology to provide these tanks and vessels. Okay, so simply with that click, I've got a commitment record created. And by the way, I can also go into the commitments register right from here. That green icon will take your quotes and allow you to turn those into commitments. Okay, so I've got a commitment here. You can see the status is pending, and it put the line items in there that we want at the price that we agree to. At this point, we could commit to some percentage of this work or all of it. Let's go ahead and commit to all of it. Okay, we might want to put a contract number or PO number or something up here in the code. We'll just say something like this. That code can be anything you want, and that'll be just a reference number. Okay, and there are other tags and things like that as well that you can apply to these commitments under the Setup tab. Okay, but we're basically committing to Ecology. We're going to do this work. They're going to do this work for us at this price. Let's go ahead and commit it. We have a fixed audit trail there that shows when we made that commitment. This is now read-only. Okay, so we know what those prices were that we committed to. Okay, let's go ahead and change that. Let's go ahead or close that, I should say. Let's save that. And so now when I come back to that job tracking register, we see that we do have a committed cost in here. And in fact, you can see for that pressure vessel I've got highlighted, our committed cost is actually less than what we have in the budget, $4 million versus $5 million. And we can see who's the company, what's the commitment code. All right. So that sets the stage now for as the work progresses and as Ecology does this work and bills us, we have the ability to measure those actual expenses against both the commitment of $4 million and against the original budget of $5 million, or I should say the current budget of $5 million. And I've cheated a little bit here. I've got some actuals already recorded for these lines, so we'll just kind of fast forward a little bit. Let's say several months have gone by. We've completed a lot of the work involved in these things, or I should say Ecology has. And in fact, they've created on different days here, we've created some progress entries. And they're up to 50% complete right now as of October 2012. And we've been getting some bills along the way, $1 million, $1.2 million, and $800,000. Same with our pressure vessel. Okay? We've gotten some bills from them along the way. So with those actuals in place and with that commitment set up, what I'm going to do now is go to a commitment status view. And now what this view does is it shows me, let's look at just the things that are committed. And so these are the only things we've made commitments for so far. Okay, and now we can look at, if I highlight that pressure vessel, we can see what was the current budget, $5 million. What was the commitment we made, $4 million. What's our as-built cost to date from those entries we were looking at, $2.8 million. Okay, but now is where it gets interesting, right? We're indicating they're 50% complete. Okay, but we've been billed $2.85 million, so we've actually used up 71% of that commitment, okay, but we've only completed 50% of the work as far as what we can tell of the work that's been reported. Okay, so now we can look at if we have, we can look at how much is left in our current budget. So we can spend another $2.15 million and hit our current budget. But if ecology is going to stick to the committed number that we agreed to, there's only $1.15 million left. And in fact, based on their progress so far, we're expecting a forecast cost to come in at $4.8 million and $5 million. So we're actually expecting them to come in over budget on both of these items, and you can see that showing up in red there, right? How much we're expecting to be over from a commitment standpoint and from a budget standpoint. Okay, so that vessel item, for example, you know, right now we're forecasting they're going to come in quite a bit over the forecasted commitment, $850,000, but at this point we'd still be under budget by $150,000 versus the original budget. Okay, so the premise here is that by creating those commitments, we have kind of a subset of the budget that we can then compare actuals to the committed value and to the original budget value, so we can really get a feeling for, you know, how is the contractor or supplier doing, and how are we doing against that original budget number that we based our assumptions on in this project. Okay, so obviously those commitments capabilities can be applied in lots of different ways, but primarily we see those being used for managing large contracts, large supplier items, large procurement items, both from owner to contractor as well as a contractor to subcontractor. All right, let's take a step forward now and look at the next group of things that we wanted to focus on today. This is our second of 4 things we want to highlight. Okay, so this is one that we got a lot of feedback on. We see a lot of people using our integration with Excel and really doing some creative and fantastic ways to really open up the calculations in hard dollar by tying into Excel formulas. So as hopefully most of you know, you can take values in hard dollar, virtually any value in hard dollar, and link it to any cell in your job's Excel workbook, which of course allows you to put in any kind of formulas you want, use any as elaborate calculations as you want. Okay, so one of the things that we've done here recently in 12.1 is we've extended that feature so that you can create those Excel links to multiple values in hard dollar in a single step. Okay, so instead of doing them one by one, you can select a bunch of fields that you want to link to the same formula in Excel. Let's take a look. I'm going to jump over to a different project. We'll go over to this mining example job here. Okay, this particular project you can see has, in this project we have a bunch of different drifts, items that looks like some underground drilling shaft type items. We got quantities in there. And then we have a column here, units per day, unit of measure per day. So a lot of these are using that same advance rate, let's say, or that same production rate. Maybe we want to link those, all of those different items, their units per day assumption, to a calculation in Excel. And in fact, if I open up from my Forms menu, I go to my job workbook. So if we open up the Excel workbook in this job, you can see this is an actual example of a really nice example of a customer workbook here, where we've got different things set up, different factors. I won't go into detail on all these formulas, but we'll just suffice it to say we've created an Excel spreadsheet here, or the customer has, that will allow us to go in and plug in different factors, different assumptions, and ultimately arrive at this meters per day value down here. Okay, so let's go back to hard dollar. And now I want to, all of these ones that are currently at 4.97, I want to link all of those to that particular cell we just looked at in Excel. Okay, so I'm going to go up to my block select. This is anytime we want to select a block of values in hard dollar for copy and paste or any other purpose, I go to that block select mode. I'm going to start with that first one, and then I'm going to hold down my shift key as I click on, let's take that one right there all the way. So that range that I've just highlighted I want to link all of those values to Excel. If you've tried to do this in your current version of hard dollar, you know you've got to do them one by one, even though they're all going to the same value in Excel. Now I can just highlight that whole block, right-click, say link these fields to Excel, okay, and what do I get? I get a list of the named values in that Excel workbook we were just looking at. Okay, so the only requirement here is you've got to name the cell in that Excel workbook, and then it's showing you here, here's the named cells that I can link to. Okay, in fact, I know that's the one I want. If I wasn't sure, I could go pick from Excel, and that would take me right into the workbook. Let's just do that. That pops up that workbook for me. I can go down and just click on the value that I want to link to in Excel and click my little link button. And notice you can link from Excel to hard dollar, and you can also link from hard dollar out to Excel. So you can create links that take values from hard dollar and bring them into your Excel workbooks as well. We're going to go this way. We're going to bring it from Excel to hard dollar. Okay, now you see all of those values. Let's get out of block select mode. You see them highlighted and with the underline. So that tells us that all of those are linked to that particular cell in that Excel workbook. And the beauty of this, of course, is that I'm one click away from seeing, where did that number come from? If I'm in a review, we want to see, well, how did we come up with that 4.97? One click takes me right to that cell in the workbook, and then I can obviously review, the assumptions we put in and the variables we put in to arrive at that number. Okay, so if you're using those Excel workbooks and Excel links, and you find yourself doing those links one by one, I think you'll really like this capability now, where we can establish those links very efficiently, many at once. Same thing if I want to get rid of those links, I can now just highlight them all, right-click, unlink from Excel. It leaves the last value that we had in there, and we're ready to move along now. All right, let's move to our third focus area, which really is an addition to our formal budget contract change process that we introduced in version 12. So in version 12, along with our control budget, those of you that are really taking a disciplined approach to managing changes on your project, perhaps you've moved away from doing that in Excel or some other process, and you're using version 12 to do that, to make formal change orders to your budget. We now have some new capabilities that really make that easy in the situation where you're capturing the potential change in the CBS or the current estimate, and then you want to turn those into formal changes perhaps down the road. Instead of a lengthy two-step process, that process is now a single step. And let's take a look at that. All right, so I'm going to go into another project now. We'll go to this Speedway project, more of a road type project. Okay, and let's take a look at. I'm going to go into my budget contract changes log here, and it looks like there's some changes that have already been made in this project. Some that have, looks like all of them have actually been approved as well. Okay, so with this feature, those of you that are not familiar with version 12, this feature allows you to go in and create change records to make changes to your control budget, for quantities, man hours, budget. Okay, one of the things we've added now, though, if I go and say I want to create a new change record, okay, instead of doing it from scratch and manually selecting the items and manually entering in the change, we now have the ability to create change records automatically. And we do that by looking at what are the differences in the current estimate compared to what's in our control budget. Okay, so imagine at time one we have our control budget and our current estimate are the same, and then over time maybe we see some trends, we anticipate some changes, so we put those into our current estimate, perhaps to drive our forecast. But then at some point, and for some of those changes, we want to make formal change records and go through the approval process to update our control budget. Okay, so now if I say let's create these change record automatically, it's going to look at the entire project and look for things that are different from the current budget compared to the current estimate. Okay, so if you look at our column headings now, what it's done is it's listed just those items, those cost items in the project that have a difference between the CB or current budget and the CE or current estimate. And we're looking at that based on costs here or man hours. We could also look at it based on quantities, anything where the quantity has changed. We could add those columns into this view. Okay, but there are a couple things here you can see that have, if we look at just the cost, that concrete pavement, for example, in the current estimate is $4.2 million, and our current budget is $5.4 million. Okay, so we may, again, based on some trends, based on some numerous factors, perhaps we've updated the current estimate, but now we need to create a formal change to update our current budget to account for that difference. So if I highlight that one item, I can highlight multiple items. I'll just highlight the one and click OK. And that's going to give us a new change record, and we'll just call this new change so we can easily spot it. We can go in and fill in a number of different tags and categories and notes about where this change came from. Okay, we're going to make it a budget contract change. If I go to my details tab, you're going to see it's already filled this out for me. It's already listed that concrete pavement item. And in fact, if I double click on that item, it sees that difference of $1.2 million. And that's that difference between the current budget and what we have in our current estimate. And it looks like this was a subcontract item is where this was originally budgeted. So if we change that by $1.2 million, we're going to decrease our budget in the subcontractor category. Okay, so by doing that, now we click OK. We've got that. If we go back to that budget contract changes register, now we have that new change. Right now it's pending because I didn't click the approve button. Okay, but if I need to go through a formal contract process, send out a document perhaps to that subcontractor to cover the paperwork side of it. Okay, and at that point, once we get signatures, we can come back, open that up, and mark it approved. What that gives us now, again, back on that budget contract changes register, is a log of those changes that have affected our control budget or current budget. Okay, so now you can see we're up to 4 different changes, some bridge work changes, and the one we just did on this concrete pavement. Okay, and this changes register gives you, great ability to filter and slice and dice, so we can look at. Imagine you got hundreds of change records in here. We can drill in and look at it by item. We can look at it based on the dollar values as I scroll over, man-hour changes, quantity changes, and obviously, like anywhere else in the system, you're going to want to set up views that you're comfortable with in order to see just the things that you really want to see. Okay, one other thing that we did in this budget contract changes area is let's go create a change record from scratch. And in fact, let me jump over to, I'm going to jump over back to another project just so we can see, if we go back into that EPC job and we go into the budget contract changes there aren't any changes in there yet. And let's go create one manually. We'll create a change record from scratch. And we'll do a budget contract change. Well, again, we'll just call this new change just to keep it simple. And when I go into the details section, this is where I can choose what item is changing, or items. Let's take that install instrumentation. If I take that item, which was a $24,000 item, double click on that. One of the things that you can now do is if I want to change that, make a change to that, you can see the budget, current budget for that item is broken down between labor and equipment. If I want to just make a $10,000 change, maybe we're going to add $10,000. if I put it, I can now put that change in at the very top cost category level, and it will push it down proportionally into the subcategories using the same proportions as the current budget. Okay, so I can enter the value. If I know we're going to have an $8,000 labor change and a $2,000 equipment change, I can do that. Or again, I can enter it at the top level and they'll push it down. That was something we got quite a few requests on in order to speed up that entry process. Okay, so that's again really some efficiency changes here and some efficiency gains on entering those project changes and budget changes as they occur, and making it easy to get those changes that we make to the estimate on an ongoing basis, making it easy to get those turned into formal change records that we can log and document. All right, let's move on to our fourth focus area, which is really all about reporting and dashboards. There's some new built-in reports that I want to show you, and then we'll spend a few minutes looking at Lasso PI, or Lasso Project Intelligence, our web-based reporting and dashboards. All right, let's take a look at first at these two new reports. We have a budget variance report and a budget contract changes report. If we go into back to hard dollar, and let's go back into that Speedway project, that road project, which we know we do have some changes on. The first report I want to show you is a nice report that allows you to really report on those changes. So go into the report menu, go into our job tracking section, and now you see two new reports over here, budget contract changes and budget variance. And like any other reports, you can go create your own versions of those. I've created a version that I'm calling standard for me. Let's take a look at over here the settings for that. So if I go into my details, there are, as you can see, tons of options now on this report that allow you to control what do we want to show on this report, and how do we want to group and sort all the values on this report. And how do we want to sort everything? Do we want to put a filter from we just want to report on a certain date range? Do we only want to show approved changes? What types of changes do we want to show? And then all these check boxes here are really just what columns do we want to show on the report. Okay, so I'm just going to run this standard version, and then we'll make a few changes and see how easy it is to customize the report. Okay, so here's my budget contract changes report, and you can see it's just nicely listed for me, all of those changes, including that new change we just made on 5/22. We can see that it's approved. We can also see what was the nature of that change. These were all budget changes, and we can see all of those changes across the whole project have totaled up to $3.9 million total. Maybe I want to add a few things to this report, or maybe group it differently. For example, it shows me, that it is approved, these changes, but maybe I want to see who approved it. Okay, so I can come over here to my columns, and let's turn that column on there so I can see who approved these things. And maybe I want to see, maybe I want to group these changes in a particular way, maybe by status. I think all of mine are approved, but let's say we had some that were approved and some weren't. We would see different groups on this report. So now you can see, again, I run that report. We can see the first group, which is our approved changes, and we kind of bracketed those so we get a subtotal of all the approved changes. We had another group, let's say pending changes. You'd see those immediately following, and then your grand totals would be down at the bottom. And now, like I added that column to show me who did the approval on these, and we can see that showing up. Okay, so that particular report, a lot of options, a lot of control over not only how the report looks, obviously, like every other report, you can put your logo in, change fonts, colors, all that kind of stuff. But in addition to that, you have tremendous control over, what columns do I want to see, how do I want to group and filter and sort. And like any other report, at this point, I could send this to email. I could save this out as an Excel spreadsheet, as a PDF. Okay. Let's take a look at a second built-in report, which is our budget variance report. And again, I've created the standard settings for myself. You guys can create your own settings and save those by name. This one, if we go into our details here, this report is really geared toward helping you look at your different budgets, your current budget, your original budget, your forecast, and looking at those variants from as-built to the budget. Okay, let's run this as is. We'll take a look at it, and then again, we'll make a couple changes. Okay, so here's that budget variance report for the Speedway project. Again, you got a lot of control over, what do we want to, here we're listing our tracking codes, but we could list account codes, phase codes, tags, however we want to describe our items. We got the description, we got our original budget, approved changes, current budget. Here, this project is underway, so we have as-built costs showing up. And then we've got our forecast over to the right. So what's our forecast cost of completion? Okay, so original budget for this job, $1.6 million. Our forecast at completion is $1.63 million. And again, lots of other columns you could turn on here. Okay, let's go ahead and make a couple changes to the settings. Maybe we want to group this by account code. Okay, so instead of having just a flat list of items, I'm going to group them into their relevant cost codes or account codes. Okay, and maybe we also want to see our percent complete. Let's turn percent complete on as a column on the report. Now when we run it, you should see those changes show up for us. All right, so now we've got, we can see our subtotal section, so we have subtotals by account code. So for example, account code 111000, right there where my mouse is, you can see there's two different tracking items rolling up into that code. And so I can see each individual item, and then I've got subtotals for the whole account. And if we scroll over to the right there, we can also see that column that I just added into the report called percent complete. So very easy. We've done a lot of things to make it easy without having to go to a full-fledged report writer and having to learn, that new set of programming in order to create your own reports. You can do that just with the check boxes, with the radio buttons, with all the options that we've built into these reports. Hopefully you'll be able to get to the format and the content that you're looking for. All right, now last thing we want to show, and then we'll open it up for questions. The last thing I want to show is the link between Hard Dollar and our Lasso Project Intelligence product that was released in November. Lasso is a complementary product to Hard Dollar. It's designed to take feeds of data from Hard Dollar. It connects to Hard Dollar automatically. But it does also, it is built so that you can connect to other data sources as well, like perhaps your accounting system or your scheduling system, other data sources that we can connect into Lasso, not just Hard Dollar. It is a web-based capability, so we can you can make your reports and dashboards available online. It runs from the cloud, so you don't have to do, there's no IT setup that you guys need to do. When you subscribe to Lasso, you point your Hard Dollar installation to Lasso in the cloud and on the internet, and you have your own secured way to enable everybody to get reports and dashboards that you allow to. And when I say that you allow to, it can be used internally. It can also be used to allow your customers and partners to have access to reports that you control, and you decide who's allowed to get into those things. It also gives you a way to get access to your project data and reports via your tablet, via your smartphone, right? Virtually any way and anywhere, as long as you've got internet access, you can get into your reports. Let's take a look at that. So from inside of Hard Dollar, I can get to it right by going to Report and going to Portfolio Reports. And that reminds me that I should also mention that one of the great things about Lasso is that you can create cross-project reports. Whereas inside of Hard Dollar, we're reporting on a particular project. In Lasso, we can create reports and dashboards that span across multiple projects. Okay, so I go into Lasso. You can see I'm just getting to this through a web browser. I'm logging in. And what I get is I can see the different accounts that I'm a member of. Okay, these could be my own accounts. So if I'm HD Construction, I have my own portfolios that I've set up. So I have all projects. I might have a separate portfolio with just my energy projects or my infrastructure projects. And perhaps we want different looking reports and things for those other types of projects. Okay, but you can also see I'm also a member of another account. So somebody who's using Lasso could invite me to join their account, and I can see what they have allowed me to see in their account. Okay, so again, your customers you can invite them to join your account where they can see your reports. They might also be invited to see another Lasso user's account so they can see those reports. Okay, with one login, you don't have to have different accounts. Let's take a look at some of the visualization capabilities and dashboard capabilities. Let me go first into just my world map here for all projects. This is going to show me a geo map. So one of the things that Lasso does support is a geographic mapping. And so we can tell where our projects are located. One of the things that is in 12.1 of Hard Dollar is that in your job properties, you can record your country, the city, where those projects are located, as well as if you want, you can even go down to the latitude and longitude of those projects so that we can easily map them. Where are they located? So here's a nice little dashboard that shows me I've got projects all over the world. I can easily see, based on that scale down below, the value of those projects. So it looks like I've got the highest dollar value is over here. In the UK, $93 million of work over there. Looks like one project. Whereas over here in the US, I've got a few projects totaling $78 million. And in fact, just to show you how you can kind of use these different dimensions in the reports, let's go to this. Let me widen this out a little bit. Let's do the same kind of report, but do it by project size. And now you're going to see the size of those project dots get bigger or smaller to represent the dollar value of those projects. So the biggest one is obviously the largest circle, and then the smaller projects are the smaller circles. So I can, with one view, I can see where are my projects located, what size are they relative to each other. Let's go into now, so that's nice, being able to see kind of where everything is located. Let's go into this portfolio breakdown. This is going to give me some interesting information now across. And again, I'm reporting on all of these projects that are coming in from Hard Dollar. Okay, I didn't have to do any kind of import, export, anything like that. Lasso reads Hard Dollar data directly. All I've got to do initially when I'm creating the portfolio is choosing which projects do I want to include in my Lasso portfolio. There you see that Speedway project that we were looking at earlier. Okay, and this view shows us, as I look across this portfolio of projects, okay, here's my energy projects and the dollar value of each one of those projects as I move across. Over to the right, I can see each project listed, and I can see the cost category breakdown. So, for example, if we're wondering, which projects are we really subbing out the most, subcontracts is our green section of those bars, so I can very quickly see that Speedway project is mostly subbed out. Right, 83% of that Speedway project is subbed out. Okay, whereas if we look at labor, for example, on that Alliance shutdown turnaround project, 97% of that project is our own labor. Okay, all of these views, these dashboards, we have a lot of these kind of things built in. But you can also create your own. The beauty of this is you can go create your own views, your own reports, and really set up. They could be graphs, charts like this, or they could be something simple like a cost report. So as I run this cost report now, again, this is looking across all of those projects, and we're going to see some typical columns, what's our percent complete on across those different portfolios of projects, what is our original budget for all that work. We could have added totals at the bottom, certainly no problem. And as we go over to the right, we can see our actuals, forecast, variance. You can also set up prompts on these things. So maybe I want to be able to see the same layout, same view, but I only want to look at, let's look at that Speedway project. Now it's going to recalculate and show me just the Speedway project, which is in my infrastructure portfolio. Now again, I could have listed the project names here instead of the portfolio name. All of that is up to you. In fact, a quick glimpse into how easy it is to create these reports and dashboards, I can simply go into my designer, and this will allow me, without being any kind of a programmer or without having to get IT involved. Again, all this runs from the cloud, so you can start using this right away. If I want to create a new report, I simply go through two things, either measures or attributes. Maybe I want, all this is plain English kind of stuff, right? We want to look at, maybe we want costs, forecast cost in our report. Maybe we want, let's do our current estimate. I'll just drag that over. Actually, let's do it the easy way, just double click on it, it's even easier. So if I double click on that value, now I see my current estimate is added into the report. Let's go down and look at attributes. In other words, what do I want to see that current estimate by? I want to see it by, do I want to see it over time? I want to see it by project. So let's use our project description. Again, just double clicking on it. Now it's listed in our projects, and now I can see those projects by their current estimate by each one of those projects. And maybe I want to create a chart out of this, so we go to Chart Properties, or I can just click on the icons from the previous screen. But maybe we want to see a bar chart, and we'll use the project description as the category and our current estimate as our series. Okay, very much like doing reports in Excel. Right? So let's go ahead and accept that. Those chart types, by the way, if we go in and take a look at those options, let's go into our chart properties again, just so you can see the different types of formats that you can use. And there's tons of them: column, bar chart, waterfalls, virtually anything that you want to use here. Let's go in and do we'll do a bar chart again here by category and series. Let me maximize my view here real quick. Working in a smaller view here, so I don't get to my full screen view. But what I want to show you now. Let's take those any of those reports that you create, charts, graphs, and show you how easy it is to put them into a dashboard. So that portfolio breakdown that we were looking at, if I go in now and edit that dashboard itself, now I can go in and take any of those graphs, charts, report layouts, and decide how do I want those to appear in my dashboard. Okay, because of my smaller view there, you didn't get to see the final chart, but I've got it saved so you'll be able to see it show up. Maybe, this is a big chart taking up a lot of space here, so let's split that. We'll split it vertically. So now we've got less room in our dashboard for that chart, but now we've got room to add that new one that I just created. So if we take that chart that I was just working with, drag it into this view, there's our chart that shows our current estimate and as-built, and now I've added that into my dashboard, and when I save that, now anytime anybody goes into that particular dashboard, they see not only those first two graphs, but now there's that third one that I just added in there. Okay, so hopefully you're getting the idea here how easy it is to create these reports, graphs, dashboards using your hard dollar data, and again without any kind of IT intervention or or hardware that you need to set up. This all runs directly from the cloud, linked to your hard dollar data, and it's completely secure as well. You control the security and who the members are and what their rights are. Okay, so we wanted to give you a glimpse of not only the new reporting that's built into hard dollar, but also Lasso PI that is integrated with hard dollar. All right, and at this point, let's wrap it up and open it up for any questions on what we've seen so far and or any of these other new enhancements in version 12.1 that if there's anything anybody would like to go into in a little more detail, use your question submit capability there through the meeting function, and feel free to submit any questions that you have, and we'll take any of them that come in.
Thanks, Brad. We are starting to get a couple of questions coming in. One of the questions says it looks like resources can now go into different cost categories when you add them to a supplier. Can you show us how that works?
Oh, yes. When you when you award them to a supplier. So if we go into that is a fairly frequent request. So currently, if we look at our resource rates, if we go into anything that you can award to a supplier, like materials, rented equipment, etc., previously, if you were to award those things to a subcontractor or supplier, you don't have control over what cost category those things go into. Okay, now with version 12.1, what you can do, if we go into, say, these compactors here, when I built my charge rate up initially for this thing, we broke it into some rental cost and some fees. And what I now have the option to do under the quote tab is to say, rent cost category by default, or should we make it go under those same cost categories that we just looked at? So even if I award it to a supplier, with this option, it's going to still use whatever the awarded costs are going to go into this rental and fees buckets in the same proportion that my original plug rates were set up as.
Great. We have another question. Can we attach estimating reference files, for example, PDF, Microsoft Word, projects, into each CBS cost item?
Great question, and that is something that we are, as I mentioned, we have a release plan for later this year, and a big release scheduled for 2014. Currently, the ability to make attachments in version 12.1 is still at the project level, so you are able to obviously attach drawings, PDFs, what have you, through our attachments capability, but that does bring them in at the project level. So making that change where those things can be associated at the item level is part of our plan for our 2014 product, and that will allow you to really associate those attachments at the object level. So whether it's a resource, whether it's a cost item, a pay item, a quote, job tracking, a timesheet, all of those objects, if you will, in our 2014 release will have the ability to have attachments associated with each one of those.
Great. We've got a Primavera-related question. What's the Primavera multi-job sync? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so Primavera, obviously a lot of our users are taking advantage of the integration that we have with Primavera in order to keep your budgets and schedules in sync, in order to create cash flow forecasts and things like that, to drive schedules from costs and vice versa. Previous to version 12.1, that integration worked on a sort of one job at a time basis. So in order to do the synchronization with Primavera, you would open up the project, you would hit your synchronization button. In this case, this project is tied to Microsoft Project. If this project was tied to Primavera, you'd see Primavera there. Okay, but you would sync those one at a time. What we now have the ability to do through the file menu is you can do a batch sync, and that's going to allow you to go in and create really a list of projects and rules so that you can run them all at once. And so we could go in and create, which jobs do we want to be syncing with Primavera. Let's say we got 20 projects that are in progress or are estimating or in the execution stage, and we want to, once a week or once a day, we want to just go in and synchronize from Hard Dollar to Primavera. Okay, so we could list all 10 or 20 of those projects through the Add Jobs capability there, and then initiate all of those synchronizations at once. Okay, and we can label that group of projects that we want to sync with a label, so that all we got to do is hit the button one time, and it'll go through and sync all 10 of those projects or all 20 of those projects, rather than having to do them one at a time.
Great. Looks like we're about out of time, and I don't see any other questions. I would like to remind everyone that this webinar will be uploaded to our harddollar.com website within 24 hours. Again, that's harddollar.com. We do appreciate everyone joining us here today. And Brad, I think you have a couple of housekeeping items, and we appreciate everyone being here, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Yep, last thing that we want to mention is that we do plan to have the version 12.1 available for download on our website starting June 4th. You will get your emails that you normally get, whoever is appointed in your company to receive those. We'll get those announcements to indicate that it is available with a link so that you can go download it. And certainly, for more information in the full What's New list, that will be at harddollar.com as well starting June 4th. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to point out, I mentioned it earlier, but we do have an email account called enhancementrequests@harddollar.com. So we have lots of ways, as I mentioned, to get feedback from customers on things you'd like to see. But feel free to send an email to that enhancementrequests@harddollar.com email box anytime you like. We review every one of those. We respond to every one of those. We don't promise to do everything that you request, but we do promise to look at it and review it and consider it. So again, I want to thank everybody for your usage of Hard Dollar and the feedback you've given us over the years, and hopefully you'll be as excited as we are with 12.1 and start taking advantage of it as soon as possible, and we're here to help. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Brad, and that concludes today's webinar. We do appreciate your time today, and we're always available. Again, you can